Hello and welcome, and it is that of the 24th of May 2018, also that of Crypto Day. I'd like to welcome you to this video. My name is Derek, and everything of course within your own risk, own reward. I'll be taking a look at this Bitcoin chart, but interesting since this bottom, just this interesting pattern that I want to go over, as well as a little bit on XBY. So that is what will be covered. So looking at this from the hourly time frame, as it's been in a decent decline since this 10,000. Since this bottom, there's been a lot of highs and lows along the way as far as just different spots. Whether you look at it as far as from the 18, like this one, just different spots like such. That's normal trend market maneuver. But this move that just occurred was a sudden free fall, sort of like the one that occurred down towards here. It's got to stop at some point. In this case, it did so here. Is it doing so now? I will take a look next at the volume. And when we take a look at it in here, it came in pretty heavy at this bottom point. I looked at that and noticed, interesting. Is this a spot where the market's going to bottom in here? That's what I was thinking when I seen this red move. But to what degree, I was thinking? Are we just going to have a spot where we come up maybe to like 78, 79, up to about 8,000 and then roll over? Well, maybe. I have a hard time believing it though. At least at this point that the rally is going to begin is what I'm thinking. However, I barely liquidate out of the small amount of short position that I have, thus buying some XBY and placing, well, a sell order up to that area that of course hasn't hit. But when we look at the dynamics of this move, what I want to do is I want to take a look at just the recent pattern from this bottom. And I'm going to do so within the 15-minute time frame. Actually, the 30-minute would probably work out the best. So here we have an interesting point. You have this double hit bottom. You have this established level of resistance. The 18 average barely starting to rise in here. So to say that this is a big level, well, of course it is. Typical. There's your failed breakout. Furthermore, the failed breakout did have a fast move lower, play over basically, meaning you've seen this setup in say around the 75. That was enough for that play. But as I stated, this was a key level of support that it had no problem breaking below. What do we see here now? Typical? Question mark. And I emphasize that word question mark because, as I've stated before, one of the things you notice of the possibility of the failed breakdown occurring, or failed breakout, either way it's all the same, is a move back to its area in which it came from, and the support breakdown of course being in here would basically mean this area, which is where it is. It's been holding it for quite some time. So let's go back to the 60-minute time frame and talk about normal technical analysis within this 18. You have a leg lower, so that was the key level of support in here. Leg lower, supported. You have your correctionary phase. Break support, new low. This is a correctionary phase still. It hasn't beaten such as far as the bulls are concerned, or the bears haven't been defeated. The 18 average has went sideways on this time frame. That's enough to neutralize the situation. And if it ends up reverting up to the upside, that failed breakdown that I talked about before would most certainly be in play, and you'd be expecting, I would think, at least a move up to 78 to 70, in the 79s even, for a failed breakdown, fast move higher play. But if we're talking about, like I state, you resist, leg lower, you resist, leg lower, resist, well, a step after that is leg lower, which of course would be a breakdown below that 7,200 and change. So I'm going to leave Bitcoin at that. Next, talk about XBY, but this is also important information pretty much regarding all of the altcoins, but especially the ones that are less known and usually priced cheaply as well. And that first chart you're seeing is the one I want to lead into next. This one being the first one, 2 lines, a blue line and an orange line. And the numbers on the right is dollars. And the orange represents the price of Bitcoin over the last little over 1 year, with each of these numbers representing how many days since. The blue line represents 100,000 tokens of that of XBY. Why did I choose 100,000? So that it would fit in line for this chart. Therefore, the price of Bitcoin, there's the 20,000 up here. There's where we stand today in the 6,000-7,000 area. It doesn't move anywhere near like that of the XBY, and a lot of the altcoins would do the exact same, some even more aggressive than XBY, as far as its differential movement against Bitcoin. Therefore, if this is 100,000, this represents 82 cents, 60 cents basically here. Right now trading at under 4 cents. Now when I'm looking at this, there's a couple things that I want to point out, which is why I'm going to segue into the next chart, which will make it easier to view it in the next chart's perspective. But when we look at the movements overall, the big decline going from here, almost $1, down to pennies, is happening as Bitcoin has had its correctionary move. And a lot of these moves are going to coincide. I'm going to show that even further within this video. But I look at different situations like, what if Bitcoin bottoms sometime soon and the price goes higher? Well, the easy prediction is that the orange line would start to go higher and in an uptrend, because that's exactly what, that's a guarantee. But I think it's safe to say that the blue line would as well, and of course it's going to have higher volatility moves both up and down, so clearly viewed within this chart. But what happens if Bitcoin goes down to that big level lower that I talk about, which would be somewhere down here? A move of this magnitude. Well, I would expect a bigger magnitude move down for here, maybe even a break below a penny. Would not surprise me. In fact, that's the area for which it would come from back in the first couple hundred periods of this chart. Let's now view that first chart that I had on the screen, which basically uses the following formula. I take the highest and lowest prices that I have on here for each of the data. So for Bitcoin, the high is close to 20,000 and the low is, well, based on when this was done, was a bit over 1,000. For XBY, the low I sufficed as the breakout low where that bottom area is hit at around 3 or 1/3 of a penny, and a high of about 82 cents. This is what I do with the price, is I take the actual current price that it is at now, and I divide it by the low number. But I take the log of that number. So the spreadsheet formula that I use in my spreadsheet is log current divided by low divided by log high divided by low. So that is the formula for the next chart. The numbers will always be between 0 and 1. Basically, it's a retracement between the highs and the lows as well. And here we are. So within such, if we look at some things on how, like in here, how the movements just work so well. Now in this case, as far as I should let you know what each color is designed for, orange is that of the Bitcoin chart, or the Bitcoin price, and blue is XBY. Bitcoin topped right in here, and it topped basically before mostly all the other alts because its top was somewhere in the middle of December. Most alts, including XBY, topped in January. We look at this even further from this Bitcoin bottom to the top, at least within this measure here. This is a spot where, well, Bitcoin was an early riser compared to XBY, but it was also that way within the alts. As the latter half of the summer into the fall, we've seen the prices of Bitcoin go higher, and the alts will basically do a lot of this against the dollar, thus losing against Bitcoin. But if we look at even the small retracements that Bitcoin had, like say this one here, notice XBY has a price correction at that same time. How about on this one here? Well, there you have it. They have the big down moves together, as in case they just traded perfectly here. But we can see this down move. Every single time Bitcoin has a big down move, you're usually getting a follow through within exactly that of XBY. The most recent sell-off has shown a lot of the same things as well. So to me, I look at the crypto game as such. If you're confident cryptos are going to do well, and you know Bitcoin's going to do well, and we're obviously going through this big correction right now. It's been a very long one, but overall, a lot of markets have corrected longer, and it could correct longer as well. That after the correction's over, it's just a matter of when, not if, that it's all going to go back higher again. But when we take a look at the risk versus reward, we know risk can always be the capital you decide to invest in such. Never more, other than the amount you decide more, and that's, of course, your risk. But if it goes to nothing, or if it loses 80–90%, well, then that leaves you with nothing, or 10 to 20%. But if it goes up 3x, 10x, 50x, 200x, that's what it does. And realizing, and I'm not saying XBY is going to be that magnificent coin, but it wouldn't surprise me if it has amazing price increases moving forward. And I'm stating when Bitcoin does well, that the coins, especially again, the ones that aren't as known, aren't really traded as much in volume, but still have enough trading going on, which in this case I think is sufficient, that the big possibilities of having big moves can occur. For if Bitcoin, say, were to make a move up to here, that would be a move of, like, say, it's just a 6x gain, we'll say. Would this have a 60 or a 100 or a 200x gain? After all, we see the size of the up and down moves are a lot more aggressive. And the gems, if you will, I'm not saying it is, but the ones that are, and multiple ones may be so along the way, especially if you notice when Bitcoin has its next rally, there's going to be a handful, so many different alternate coins that are going to have great rallies, like was seen at the last month of December into January. So again, a possibility to have gains of 2, 4, 500x with so many different coins line themselves up in place. But I think the chances of larger gains would come mostly if we have another Bitcoin price down to 3,000. I really don't care at all for two reasons what Bitcoin prices do next. Whether it's a move down to 3,000 or in that area, or if it's a very good breakout, thus moving back above 16,000-ish. I don't really care which happens next. And I intentionally used about the same differential move from top to bottom in choosing 16,000. See, I realize if it goes down to 3,000, that there's a lot more profit potential to be available. Because in a move of this to happen, and if I'm right and this loses more, that means the Bitcoin that I can turn into XBY, not only from what I own, but from what I would accumulate from the short position, quote unquote, I would get a lot more of them. Then the gains would also be higher, because you'd be talking about going from maybe a penny to over $1, rather than 4 cents to over $1. So that's the way that I'm looking at it. And the second reasons why I really don't care is because there's nothing I can do to control it. It's out of my hands. If it was in my hands, it'd be a much different story. It's going to do what it's going to do. So therefore, I'll just let that be the case. I realize that if it goes down in here, I have a game plan ready for what I'm going to do. And with XBY, that's one of them. I've got some covers. Well, I got one buy order for Bitcoin at 3,000 and then some at 6,000. So I would plan on buying XBY if Bitcoin goes to 6, and I'd be planning on buying some more again if it goes to 3. Thank you for tuning in to today's video, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.